All right, it's the end of the week. Plenty of news around today. Joining me now, Overnight's host on Radio 2GB, Luke Grant, and Pauline Hanson's One Nation Chief of Staff, James Ashby. Well, gentlemen, welcome. Great to have your company as always. Let's start with this big Australia push. The government's desperate to avoid talking about it. It's there in the budget, 715,000 people by June next year. So pretty quick, smart, they'll arrive on our shores. The PM was out in radio in Queensland the other day. Got pushed on the question. A lot of waffle. Have a listen.
So what you're telling the Australian citizen is that the federal government has no concerns that they won't feel the effect of over 1 million migrants coming into Australia in any adverse way.
Well, the people are here. That's the other thing. You're using the coalition's rhetoric, which is...
Well, no, I'm trying to understand. I'm telling you what my listeners are concerned about. Basically, you're saying it's a return to normality, less than when the coalition was in government, in fact, and it won't affect Australians adversely.
And the migration plan that we put forward, I'm putting forward the fact that we do have housing plans.
James, this catch-up line he's trying to run, but for the pandemic, we would have taken all these people over the past 4 years, does not stack up because we haven't had that population. It's going to come in one big hit. I've said before, it's like a python swallowing a basketball. People are under pressure. We saw unemployment increase yesterday. We know housing's scarce. Do you think people are copying this sort of excuse from the PM?
Oh, definitely not. 4,000 people lost their jobs is the prediction in the last month here in the country. The only thing falling faster than our economy is the vote for the Yes campaign with the voice to Parliament. No one buys this rubbish that Albanese is trying to spin, that we've got to play catch-up on immigration. That's the last thing this country needs. We need to play catch-up on road infrastructure, water infrastructure, which I might just add that he slashed the guts out of water infrastructure right across the country. In fact, he just terminated all those dam projects here in Queensland and across the country. So, no, Australians will not buy this line that we've got to play catch-up with immigration. It's time we put a stop to immigration. For the time being, Australia is a very generous country. We're open to people coming here, but only when we can feed, clothe and house those people that we have a responsibility first and foremost to, and that's those people either born here or who have come here in previous years. They are the obligation of this government, not new arrivals.
Luke, we had a lot of talk this week about productivity. It feeds obviously into inflation. The former RBA chief, Glenn Stevens, he was saying we're in a lot of trouble if we don't lift productivity. The current governor says the same thing. He said that's his challenge with inflation. The Treasury Secretary, Stephen Kennedy, spoke out about our abysmal performance on productivity front. He said all of that today. I went through that just a moment ago with my audience, but I guess the challenge is, Kennedy is the head of the Treasury Department in Canberra. He works closely with the Treasurer. He sits in all the important meetings. You're bitching and moaning in a speech. Come on, mate, where's your plan?
100%. The biggest reform, economic reform ahead of us are tax rates that were legislated by the former government. What's this mob doing? You talked about population. If we're going to get productivity moving, the last thing we want is to clog everything up. This is senseless. It makes no sense. And Peter, the more I speak to people in the property area, because I've watched acutely the rental crisis develop in Australia, they just want government to reduce red tape to get the hell out of the way. That's not a laissez-faire approach, but it is giving those people who want to contribute, make it easier to get about, find places to live, to get on and do their work, to do their investing. I'm concerned that the government, a year in, doesn't really have a big economic plan. It might be a good thing because sometimes we know Labor can be reckless, but yeah, we are devoid of big ideas. It's such a shame.
I might point out for people at the back end of the Australian today was a mention of the fact the Treasury Department's actually been fixated on a 26-page document for managing gender issues in the department, including the vexed issue of gender-neutral toilets. So that's a high priority for the Treasury in Canberra, unfortunately. James, this issue with pharmacy policy, I made the point, I thought it was attractive, this idea I could get 2 months of my medication in one hit, makes life easier. I get all of that. I was crook last week. I was in and out of my chemist quite a lot. I asked my pharmacist, what's your take on the budget? I wanted to, I love to get real feedback from people at the coalface. He gave it to me. I then went away and did some reading. I understand it better now. The average cost to hit the pharmacists out of these changes, $160,000 per pharmacist. Now, I don't know about you, but in a country town, your pharmacist is almost like your GP. This is not what we were told, and they're saying actually some of the changes are going to hit them harder. Is enough being made of this in Canberra?
Well, look, those people in the cities do not understand the importance of a pharmacy in a regional park. Queensland will be one of the biggest hit, Tasmania will be another. And some of the issues that I see, I'm here in a small town called Mungungo, which is only 10 clicks out of Monto, but it services a whole lot of other smaller towns around it. If you lose a pharmacy in Monto, which is the only one, you lose the ability then, other people have to travel another 100 kilometres. So they've got to go to Billawheeler or Gladstone or to Eidsvolt to be able to get medication. Once upon a time, you used to be able to go to the small country hospital pharmacy. They've all gone now. So it does leave people, particularly in regional areas, at risk if this Labor government is so pig-headed about their decision to increase those limits placed on people when they go to the pharmacy.
Right, I'll come back to The Voice a little later on with Warren Mundine, but it's interesting, Luke, the trend is against them. They're now coming out, the Voice advocates, the pro-Voice advocates, lashing the way the recent parliamentary inquiry into the legislation was handled. Sean Gordon, he's the head of an Indigenous think tank. He slammed the process as rushed. He says didn't give parliamentarians enough room to move on the wording. They now want to move on the wording, don't they? Because, as I said, their back's against the wall. I mean, we were saying this all the way along. I suspect if the polls were going the other way, no one would be worried about this inquiry, would they?
No, they wouldn't be. Look, the inquiry, Peter, was simply a stitch-up. And we saw that, I think, the best evidence was when Tony Abbott was not invited to make an in-person submission. Then all of a sudden, oh, no, we've got to get him here because I realised how bad it looked. The whole thing was a stitch-up. Now we've got sporting groups telling us how we should vote. Look, I rely on my NRL just to be entertained. I don't seek their wise counsel about matters politics, I have to say. It's going in the wrong direction. As James said before, people are waking up to it. They really are.
James, your boss wants to be a part of the No brochure, and fair enough, she's been against this voice from day one. How are you going to manage that? You've got the Nats, you've got the Liberals, you've got other parties beyond One Nation. Indeed, you've got Lydia Thorpe. How do you all hold the pen?
Yep. Well, this is the moment, Peter, where everybody needs to put their differences aside, political differences, and actually come together for the greater good of this country. This no vote is the only way that Australia will have a chance of remaining the way it is. I don't want to see further segregation in our country or communities. I think there's a lot of Aboriginal people out there that are so disappointed at the way in which Labor have gone about sort of pegging Aboriginals against the rest of us here in the country. That's not what they want. They certainly don't want this. And any Aboriginal who's of conservative ilk has been shut down. They're not given their time on the national broadcaster. They're certainly not given any time in those inquiries that have been held. Look, can I just say, Peter, I think there needs to be more than just a yes-no brochure that's put out by the Electoral Commission. There are how many billionaires in this country right now? Can I say to every one of those billionaires, please don't die the wealthiest person in this country. Can you please help the No campaign right now? We can be putting out more literature to people right across this country that's so vitally important right now. So to Mrs Reinhardt, to Clive Palmer, to anybody out there who may be conservative and who's got plenty of wealth to spread around on, the Olympics and other things, please consider putting some of that wealth into the No campaign. It is critical. We've only got a few months to do this.
All right, I have to leave it there, but to well, I won't leave it there. Just quickly, James, you live in Yeppoon or around Yeppoon. There was a big report saying that the coral reef has never been healthier. Now, I haven't seen that anywhere on the ABC. Tell us something about it.
No, Peter, I jet ski on the Great Barrier Reef every second weekend when the weather's nice and warm. It's turned a bit chilly lately. I've got to go and get a wetsuit. But I can tell you now, the clownfish are in abundance. The sea life's there. Everything you could ever want. The colour in the coral is just magnificent. And with winter, it only gets better. The water's clearer. So if you want a holiday in Queensland, now's the time to do it. Come and check out our ruined roads that this state and federal government won't fix.
All right. I will listen to you over the weekend. Overnights, Luke. Thank you for your time as always.
Thank you.
Lost the backdrop again tonight.
Good on
I'm
you.
afraid old mate's done a better job, but we'll come back to that next week. Thank you, gents.